So here I have rolled out on my thickest settings and on my like kind of second to thinnest settings on my pasta machines, sheets of Kato translucent polymer clay. And it's so warm, it's quite warm in the house, so it's sticking even to my wax paper. So I'm just doing some spritzes of water to keep it repelled a little bit, just to make it easy, you know, to move things around. The colors that I'm using today are, and these are alcohol inks. This one is Sunshine Yellow. This one is Citrus, which is a really nice like lime green. This one is Oregano. And this one is Mushroom. And now I also have a clean applicator as I throw things on the ground, and a bottle of 99% isopropyl alcohol. So I'm going to put just a little hole in the top of our alcohol container. I'm going to set that over there so that it doesn't spill. And I'm going to go through and begin just with our citrus. Now I do want to put just a little bit of this alcohol ink, or alcohol, on the surface of my clay, so that way there's something for my ink to swim in as it goes around, because I really want like a nice messy wild look going on here. So you can see, and I'm being quite generous with it because I really want this to soak into the clay. Like really penetrate it. And now I'm going to go through with the Sunshine Yellow. And just kind of the more random that you can be with it, the better. Because this is going to end up stretching and distorting really nicely. Now I'm going to go through with the oregano. Now this is a really deep, like brownish green. It's going to give some really nice marbling. And now for the mushroom. Just a little bit of like a very, this one's super dark, so I'm only going to add in a few little spots of that, because I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to like it just yet. And so now getting a little bit more of this alcohol and just drop in little droplets to let it start swimming around. If I had a spritzer bottle of this, I would really recommend using that, because I really like the different effects that we're going to get. Now also, by letting it sit in different intensities, we're going to be able to have darker and lighter spots. I'm looking for a paintbrush, but I don't have one, so I'm actually going to use this ball tip tool and add some strata to it. And this is not only dragging the color around, but again, it's going to give us high points and low points. So again, just kind of dragging along. And then before the next step, we are going to want to let this dry completely. So I'm actually going to finish this up and then go run some errands. And then I will meet you guys back here whenever it's completely dry for the next step. And you can see as well with the different degrees of, you know, very wet to kind of dry, the different effects that you can get. Now also, once it's stretched around a bit, now we can drop our alcohol into it and really see how it travels and swims and spreads, and whatever term you want to use, it's cool. Okay, so again, just going to leave this to do its thing as it dries. then I'll meet you guys back here as soon as this is all done being wet. So I actually waited until the following morning, so all of the alcohol ink is nice and dry. There is some fur kind of stuck into it just because it's my house, I guess. So I'm going to check and see. Just remove as many of the little hairs as I can without disturbing the alcohol ink too much. There we go. Okay, and so now we can take our layers, layer them up. Also, by waiting overnight, there is no longer puddles of moisture underneath them. And I'm actually going to be taking these two and just setting them together. And I'm going to feed this through my pasta machine on the thickest setting. So these two kind of just make sure there's no air bubbles if we can manage it. So there we go. And now I'm going to layer these two pieces. And this is one of the thin ones, like one of the thin sheets with one of the thick sheets. So just trying our best to make sure there's no air bubbles. Because with this clay, it really translates through to baking if you bake the air bubbles into it. So I'm going to pass this one through now. And now I'm going to layer these two together. And I'm going to pass this through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. Okay. Sometimes if there is an air bubble trapped in there, you'll get what I call blistering, which is just a little bit of the clay coming up on itself. That's all right. And so now, from here, I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it in half. There we go. Sorry, it's my work surface squeaks a lot. So layering these two pieces together. And now we're going to pass this through. And you can see we have a little bit of spread and stuff there. That's okay. Sometimes we'll get odd little bits flaking off, but again, that just lends itself to the natural appearance of the stone texture. So again, cutting in half. Now this one, just to make it, to see if we can get less blistering, I'm going to reduce it down to my second thickest setting, and I'm going to feed it through long ways. And then I'm going to do that same thing to this side. So there we are. And now I'm going to layer. Are we ready to do front to back yet? Maybe. Because you can see now, this is the side that has had the alcohol inks applied. And this is our back side. So I don't think I'm quite ready to do front to front yet. Removing any little puppy hairs as I see them. Okay, so these guys have been put through on not quite the thickest setting, and so now as I layer them together, I'm going to put it back onto my thickest setting and see if just less stress on the machine by not having to push so much through every time. So I'm going to feed it through this way. And it's getting a little big for a little wide for my pasta machine too. Okay. And I think we are ready for our first wave. Now this one's going to look a little different from the second wave. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come through with whatever cutter of our choice. And I actually really like to capture all these little edge lines and things of where the different layers were overlapping and kind of just little weirdness. I think it adds a lot of natural variation and character to the stones. And you could, if you don't plan on using doming resin on this, you could use, a thick sheet of like a sandwich bag or plastic or something and like kind of push, and it'll give you a little bit more of a domed shape. But if you're going to do that, I would recommend using 2 thicknesses of your thickest setting. So I'm going to go around and capture just all the coolest looking spots. Just all the way around. I really like that natural marbling we have over here. Okay, so from there, I'm going to use a different cutter. Just fit in some teardrops. Oh, there's that squeaky. Let me get this turned around. Actually, this is a lap desk that I have propped on the edge of a drawer. Super high-tech, futuristic crafting space. There we go. And now, with these cutters, we do have a little bit of like a overlap here. So sometimes I'll go in there and just squeeze it down. It squeezes out some of the excess clay, and you won't get as much of a weird little thingy like that whenever you're cutting. And you can also just smooth it out with your fingers on the individual cabs, or sand it down after baking. Okay. And as we lose some of the natural variation and stuff, I'm starting to press the cutter a little farther apart because I'm going to be using this scrap clay for some pretty cool stuff. And this first wave is pretty, and we get some nice stuff, nice details and everything over on the sides, but I'm excited to show you guys the second wave. Okay, so there we have that. Just go through and peel this all up. Pick out any stragglers. No cabochons left behind. Actually, quite a few tried to get left behind. And sometimes the back, the back might actually look more interesting than the front, if you can keep the dog hair out of it. So you can use your own personal preference to decide which, you like the look of better. But also, the way it looks right now is not the same as it's going to look whenever it comes out of our oven. But I've found for me at 275 degrees, the alcohol ink bakes really well. Okay, so now from here, we have all of our scrap. So I'm going to take this and actually just start smushing together because I want to make sure that there's no like air bubbles. And you could at this point add in just a little bit more translucent. And we do the fold and roll, where I fold it up to about the middle and then roll, and then fold and roll, and then fold and roll, and fold and roll. And so now kind of just compressing the ends in, and I'm going to start pinching down one side of our log that we've just made. So it looks like that. And I'm going to pass this through the pasta machine on its thickest setting. There we have, you can see some really cool and fun marbling. And so now I'm going to go in and do a second wave of cuts on this one using a different teardrop cutter, but and I really want to capture some of that, you know, the cool banded waving and stuff. Now, I feel like I blended it a little more than probably what I should have on the first wave, because the last batch that I did of this, I had much more pronounced layers in the marbling. And so that might be something for me to keep in mind. But also last time I didn't have as nice looking of a first wave either. So please feel free to experiment with this. Try as many different things as you can come up with, because I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences on these different projects that we do. Coming in with just a little cutter. Oh, can't quite fit it. Okay, and so now we're coming in for our third wave, which at this point I do think I'm going to add just a little bit more of our translucent clay. Just to give it a bit more marbling. And that's something that I love about batches of clay like this, is they evolve so much. And each one comes out so different. So I'm just conditioning this clay. So I pass it through and then I fold it. Now also keep in mind, sometimes the alcohol ink will leave like residue in the pasta machine. So you could layer it between pieces of wax paper to pass it through. Or you could just make sure to clean it real well before adding in lighter colors that you do not want contamination between. I'm not too worried about contamination right now, so. And I also have batches of lightly colored scrap clay that I will pass through to kind of clean the machine, get any of the residues out. Okay, so here we're rolling. Rockin' and rolling. Down to the beach I'm going. And now I'm wondering, oh yeah, we can pick up some of this alcohol ink that has pooled on our work surface. That's neat. Not much though, just in that one spot apparently. But we could go through and tint it further. So I'm just twisting, smush, roll, fold and roll, fold and roll, fold and roll. There we go. So now you can see some pretty nice marbling. And again, I'm just going to go through and pinch down one side of our log. This gets it to where it'll feed into the pasta machine a little easier. Putting it in the pasta machine off camera. Pass it through. And check that out. Well, other than the big old pieces of dog hair, thank you, Salmon Z. Whenever I get a hair in it, I just try to hook underneath it to lift it out. There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Those nice little marbling and waves and things. And so I will keep cutting out shapes, adding a little bit more of something else to the scrap pieces, and then I'm going to bake this. Let's see what the manufacturer directions say. This say bake at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 30 minutes. I usually do use Sculpey or Primo or Sculpey 3 or even the souffle stuff, and those bake at 275. And I've been baking this pretty well at 275, but I'm actually going to go ahead and do a batch of just the Kato at 300 just to see what different results we get, because I think it might go a little clearer whenever we have it on the 300 degrees. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll meet you guys back here after it's come out of the oven. So I apologize in advance for the traffic noises, but I wanted to come out and get some really good lighting so that you guys could see how these stones came out prior to the doming resin. So you can see they aren't perfectly flat. Still a bit of a gloss and shine to them. But I really liked this first batch with the different variation that we got on there. I especially love when some of the bare translucent shines through. But then I also really liked the second and third batches, which this one came out a little darker than the last one, like the original batch that I had experimented with. But no two stones are exactly the same, so I don't mind a bit having some different variation and stuff going on with that. And I think these same techniques could be used to get a lot of different gemstone colors and textures and making your own faux gemstones. So here you can see how they're looking after the doming resin is put on them. They aren't completely cured yet, but you can see it really gives it a very nice mirror finish and really shows off all the texture and banding and modeling that happened inside. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me for this tutorial. This is how they came out after the glaze. Like after the doming resin. That one's probably one of my favorites. Sorry for traffic noises. I'm out on my front porch because it's loud inside too. But if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. And if you have any requests for future tutorials, please feel free to suggest those. I love making new videos for you guys. Also, if you follow along with any of my tutorials and would like to share what you've made, please feel free to tag me on Instagram or share it to my Facebook wall. That way I can see what y'all are up to. And then also, if you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please check me out on Patreon. Again, there'll be links for all of that stuff down in the video description, as well as a full list of words are hard, tools and materials, and all of the links are affiliate links to Amazon, so anything that you purchase through there greatly benefits our company. So thank you guys so much again for hanging out with me, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye.